This is one of those stories that just sounds completely made up. It's the story of how a kid who literally cleaned toilets at a reform school became the guy powering the entire AI revolution. So today, we're going to break down the incredible journey of Jensen Huang and how he built NVIDIA into one of the most valuable companies on the entire planet.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This quote really nails the unbelievable contrast at the very heart of his story. We're talking about a journey from the absolute humblest of beginnings to the very pinnacle of success. It's so dramatic, it really does sound like something out of a movie. And this is the number that kind of defines that success today. $2 trillion. It's a number that's so big it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. So the question is, how on earth did a company that started with practically nothing reach this just astronomical valuation?
Well, to really get how the story ends, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Because Jensen Huang's incredible resilience, it wasn't just some personality trait he was born with. No, it was forged in the fire of some pretty serious childhood hardship.
Just look at this timeline. The first thing that jumps out is just chaos, right? Can you imagine being not even 10 years old and you've already lived on 3 different continents? His family sent him and his brother to the US for a better future. But where they ended up was a place nobody could have ever predicted.
So, he was sent to this boarding school in rural Kentucky that was basically a reform school for troubled kids. He talks about this violent, really tough environment. His roommate was 17 years old and covered in scars from knife fights. And his assigned job at this school? Cleaning the toilets. Every single day.
And this, right here, tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. Instead of just being consumed by all the chaos and the misery around him, he chose to focus on something positive, something hopeful, an apple tree he could see from his dorm window. This ability to find the good in a really bad situation, well, it would become the bedrock of his character.
So, that resilience, it absolutely paid off. He was a great student, excelled academically, and managed to graduate high school when he was just 16. He heads off to college, and this is where the next crucial pieces of his life start to fall into place.
So he dives headfirst into electrical engineering at Oregon State. To make ends meet, he's working part-time at a Denny's diner. And then in a lab class, he gets paired with his future wife, Lori. It's a classic story, right? Hard work, a little romance, but that job at Denny's, it turned out to be way more important than it sounds.
He actually describes himself as being really shy and introverted back then, but having to deal with customers all day, manage tricky situations, and just communicate clearly, it forced him out of his shell. It was this practical, real-world training in people skills that you just can't get in a classroom.
And this is where the story gets kind of wild, and you see how things come full circle. Years after his job there, he meets up with 2 friends at, where else? A Denny's booth. And it's right there, probably over some coffee, that they hatch the plan for a brand new graphics company.
So on his 30th birthday, Jensen takes the leap. He and his co-founders start a company, but its beginnings were, well, they were defined by a toilet paper company, a Latin dictionary, and just a couple $100.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Their first idea for a name was Envision. Sounds cool, right? Well, it was already trademarked by a toilet paper company. So Jensen busts out a Latin dictionary and comes up with NVIDIA, from the word NVIDIA, which means envy. He literally wanted to build a company that other people would envy.
So you're probably wondering, what was the starting capital for this company? They wanted everyone to envy? $200. That's it. That's the money he had in his pocket that he used to get the legal paperwork started for what would eventually become a $2 trillion behemoth. And starting out so small taught him a fundamental lesson. He started to write a business plan, but he never even finished it. He realized that investors don't bet on plans on paper, they bet on people. So his focus, from day one, was on building a team people could trust.
Okay, and you've got to hear this story. It just shows you how all in he was. He and his team used to dream about the day their stock would hit $100 a share. When it finally did, he made good on a promise to himself and got the NVIDIA logo tattooed on his arm. He did say it hurt a lot more than he thought it would.
So as the company starts growing like crazy, Jensen develops this leadership style that is just as unique as its origin story. And it's really built for one thing above all else: speed. Okay, get this. Most CEOs have, 5, maybe 10 direct reports? Jensen has 50. 50. He keeps the company structure super flat so that information can flow instantly without getting slowed down or filtered by layers of middle management. It's all about speed. And his emails are the same way. They're so short and to the point that employees joke they look like haikus or even ransom notes.
Now, if you really want to understand NVIDIA's core strategy for innovation, it all comes down to this one line from the movie Field of Dreams. It's this whole philosophy of building for a future that doesn't even exist yet and trusting that if you make the technology powerful enough, a market will eventually show up for it.
And this timeline right here shows that strategy in action. See, Jensen realized the graphics chips they were making for video games, which are amazing at doing tons of simple calculations all at once, could be used for scientific supercomputing. So they bet the entire company, spending a decade and billions of dollars developing hardware and software for an AI market that didn't exist. For a while, their biggest customers were a total surprise, Bitcoin miners. But then, when generative AI finally exploded onto the scene, NVIDIA was the only company that was ready. They had built it, and boy did everyone come running.
So when you zoom out and look back at this just incredible journey, from that boarding school in Kentucky all the way to the top of the world, what are the big takeaways? What can we learn from all this? I think the biggest lesson from his life is this right here. Jensen often talks about how success isn't the destination. It's not the stock price or the valuation. The real reward, the real success, is the journey itself. The challenge of building something cool, of solving really hard problems with great people, and actually finding joy in the struggle. And in the end, the entire $2 trillion story really comes back to this one simple image. It all comes back to perspective. The kid who had every reason in the world to be defeated, to be angry, he chose instead to focus on something hopeful. And that mindset, that became the foundation for everything that came after. Which really just leaves us with one final question to think about. In the middle of our own challenges, our own tough situations, what are the apple trees we can choose to focus on? What's the vision that we're building toward, even if nobody else can see it just yet?